to be a great broadcast for you. So it's Friday, April 30th. It's the last day in April. Again, we're thrilled to have all of you here with us today. Our guests today are going to be Adrianne Bailey from the Illinois Department of Revenue, as well as Chad Geiser from Integrity Technology Solutions. Coming up next week on May 7th, we're going to have Chesney Leafblad with us. Chesney is the Chief Deputy Assessor of Warren Township up in Lake County. And Chesney's going to be sharing with you tips and tricks for constituent relations when you're having to work from home. And she's going to give a great presentation about that. We've got some more great programs coming out in May. We're going to announce those next week, the entire slate for our May broadcast. If you have any comments or questions as we're going through this, just go ahead and comment on the live stream here on Facebook, and we'll be sure to get those questions answered for you. We'll get those, keep track of those as we're going through the broadcast and ask those of our guests and hope to get those to you. Don't forget, all episodes of this are all uploaded to our YouTube video after they're done. They're on our Facebook's page, and they're also on our website at ipaiEducation.org. So with that said, I'd like to have everyone please welcome with us Adrianne Bailey. Let me get Adrianne in here. Adrianne is the Property Tax Division Manager for the Illinois Department of Revenue, and she's a great partner with the Illinois Property Assessment Institute, and we're thrilled to have her coming with us today. Hey, good morning, Adrianne.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine. How are you doing this morning?
I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're coming through just fine.
Great. I need to apologize quickly because evidently the Air Guard did not consult with me before they decided to do flyovers over my house today. So if we hear a sonic noise, I'll just take a quick pause and let them do their thing, and then we'll jump right back into it.
Hey, that's okay. I contend with the loud banging of a toddler above my head during these broadcasts. So.
My dog is outside right now, so he doesn't jump on me in the middle of this.
Well, hey, thanks for taking the time to join us today for this. Looks like you're working from home yourself, just like I am.
Yes, in and out. So our team goes in the office some days and work from home some days, but we're still working every day and trying to get the things done we need to do to serve the counties and the townships and the citizens of the state of Illinois.
Yeah, and thanks for continuing to do that too. We certainly appreciate it.
It's very important, we feel.
So, one of the things we wanted to ask you about, we get a lot of questions about this. I know that you guys at the Department of Revenue do as well. Qualifications for pre-election qualifications for mostly for our township assessors, right? But also some of our county folks, and election and appointment requirements and all of that. Last year, there was a bill that went through the House, was introduced in the House, went through the Senate. But I recall that passed the Senate on the very last day the General Assembly was in session. I was sitting there watching the feed to see what happened with this. It was House Bill, or HB 2243. Governor Pritzker signed it into law in August. What changed? What was that all about? What happened with all that? Just to get everyone on the same page.
Okay. So House Bill 2243 was an initiative that the department had worked on in conjunction with our assessor associations to try to update our education requirements for assessors. Several years ago, I think it was prior to 2011, if you earned a CIO designation, you didn't need any other continuing education. You got the designation, you held it for life pretty much. So at that time, there was some discussion, which predates me a little bit, but I'm anecdotally speaking here. At the time, they had felt that there needed to be some education requirements for assessors. So the statutes required, if you had a CIAO designation, you also had to take 30 hours of continuing ed in a certain specified time period to qualify for office. And that was whether you were a township assessor or a chief county assessment officer. Then in about 2011, the IPAI recognized that continuing education is very important for our assessors. So they started implementing continuing education requirements. That in a way made our 30-hour requirement a little duplicative to what your organization required.
Yeah.
So with the assessor associations, the department, and the Property Assessment Institute, we felt that that duplicative requirement could be removed from the statute. After 3 years of trying, we finally got it passed. And yes, August 23rd was the date that it was signed into law.
August 23, yeah.
August 23rd. In addition to removing that 30-hour requirement, it now also requires anybody holding a non-CIAO designation that's accepted by statute to receive the same certification from the department that you have to receive if you're using a CIAO. So all accepted designations are now kind of on a level playing field and have the same requirements, whether you're using a CIAO or one of the other lesser used designations that are allowed by statute.
Yeah. So, so students are no longer required. Students. I keep referring to our folks as students because they are to us. I should say assessors, right? So assessors are no longer required to take 30 hours, be qualified for election. Then is that right?
That is correct. The 30 hours is out of the statute now to qualify for election, appointment, or contracting to office. However, I do want to add that the department still does have the education stipend. And if you're in a qualifying position and have the CIAO designation or some other accepted designations, we still will pay $500 stipend annually if you take 30 hours of education in a calendar year with at least 15 hours being an exam. So that's still in place.
Yeah.
When we say the 30 hours is eliminated, it is for qualifying for office, but there is still that stipend available if you want to continue to try to earn that. And there are qualifications for that. There are certain positions. So if you want to reach out to the department, you can email us and we can let you know about that. And before anybody asks, we have not mailed those stipends out yet, but we are still working on those from home. Those are being processed, and we look for probably late May or sometime in early June for those to start being processed and issued. So we're wrapping up our work for the year on those.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important to say too, even though the Department of Revenue no longer has that 30-hour requirement in place for folks to qualify to be elected or appointed into office, the IPI, we still have requirements of continuing education requirements in place. You're still required to do your 60 hours of continuing education in a 4-year cycle if you want to maintain your designation.
Absolutely. So just because our 30 hours went away doesn't mean that people don't have to take any education anymore.
Right.
Every designation that's accepted for office, whether it's the CIAO or some of the others, still have a continuing education component that those organizations require. And it differs from organization to organization, but they all require you to take education to maintain your designation and be in good standing. So you still have to take classes.
Yes.
You just have a little more freedom. So for example, you said you've got a 4-year cycle. If it's more advantageous for a township or a county office to spread that education out over that 4-year period, maybe it's more affordable for them to take 1 class a year instead of trying to double up in other years. It allows them to kind of work those classes in as it works best for their budget and their schedules.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we will see folks will come forward like, 2019 was the first year of our new CE cycle, continuing education cycle, and we will see folks will come in and they'll do all 60 hours that first year and they'll get it out of the way. There'll be people who will come in and they'll do 1 class a year for 4 years. There'll be some people, we don't recommend doing this, there'll be some folks who will wait until the last 6 months of the 4th year and they'll do all 60 hours during then.
Yes.
So yeah,
we don't recommend that in case we have an odd year like this where things are a little out of balance of what we expect, but it is your purview to do that if that's your choice. Right. I'm a work under pressure person myself, so I understand those people too.
Yeah. So if anyone out there is watching and maybe they're currently registered for our qualifying series of courses, or they're thinking about getting into the assessment field, can you talk through a little bit, if someone's interested in becoming maybe a township assessor, let's say, especially in a rural area where it's just sort of that part-time job and you're a one-person shop, what do they have to do to get qualified to be able to even run for assessor?
That's a great question. It really depends on where you're located in the state. So there are different categories of qualifications depending on your assessment jurisdiction, whether you're a a township or a multi-township assessment jurisdiction. Every year, or once every 4 years prior to the election, we post those requirements on our website, and we did that late January this year. We're required by law to do it February of the year that nominating papers are required. So you've got that year to kind of plan. We list every township or multi-township assessment jurisdiction across the state, and we provide whether it is an introductory, intermediate, or designation required district.
Yeah, three different tiers there.
3 different tiers. Introductory districts are, they're kind of disappearing because, as we know, in my little town that I grew up in of 800 people, we just opened a Dollar General yesterday. So they're very, very excited. They've got a Dollar General and a Casey's. Those are popping up all over the state. So that tends to up that commercial EAV in those districts, and that kind of pushes some of those smaller jurisdictions up into a different category. If you're an introductory district, you just have to have a township assessor introductory course that's offered by the Department of Revenue. You can take it in person or as a home study. We have it available in both methods. Then we have this intermediate category, which is kind of bridging you from introductory to requiring that designation. If you're intermediate, you can run for the first time with that township assessor introductory course, but then over that 4-year period, for your next election, you have to earn one of those qualifying designations to be qualified to run again for that same jurisdiction. Over 90%, I would say it's at least 90% of the jurisdictions in the state, though, do require a CIAO or other accepted designation. So most of them require that.
That gives folks the opportunity, you know, hey, I think I'm interested in doing this. I can take this one course through the Department of Revenue and get in and you know, sort of get my feet wet, and then take that 4-year span in office, right, to get my designation and work through it.
Yes, and that is, again, only in really, really small assessment jurisdictions, very rural, not a lot of commercial industrial. It is important to mention, though, that whichever one of those categories you're in, whatever those continuing ed requirements are or those designation requirements, they have to be earned prior to becoming a candidate to office. So if you're interested in becoming an assessor, you want to get on our website and find out what your requirements are, or send us an email so that we can let you know what you need to get done prior to those nominating papers being due.
Because there's actually a certificate, right, that they have to obtain from the Department of Revenue that needs to be submitted with their nominating papers, right?
Correct. You can go on our website and find the form. It's called Pre-Appointment Pre-Election Certification Request. So we actually named it exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's a 1-page form, pretty simple. You give us your identifying information and the township or multi-township and or county that you're interested in, and we'll check your records. And if you have the qualifying designation in good standing, or in one of those smaller ones, you've earned the base qualifications for those, then we provide you with a signed certificate of educational qualification, and you'll file that with your nominating papers, or when you caucus, or when you're being appointed to office, depending on what you're doing.
Now, if somebody says, you know, I talked to my township clerk or someone like that, and they don't know anything about this, and they say I don't have to have one of these, I mean, what would you tell those folks?
I would tell them to have their township clerk contact us, because it is required. And again, just remember, when House Bill 2243 was passed, some people have not had to do this in the past for prior elections if they were running on a CAE or MAS or one of those other designations. They previously didn't have to have certification, which caused a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
You know, township clerks didn't know when they got that if it was legitimate or not. Some people felt that the CIAO certificate that they get from your organization was what they needed, which it's not. It has to come from us at the Department of Revenue. So this puts all designations on a level playing field. It makes the requirements standardized across all designations. So it should make it a lot easier for those township or multi-township clerks to make sure that someone holds the proper qualifications for office. They can always reach out to us if they have questions about this, and we're more than happy to provide them sample copies. We also work with the State Board of Elections, and we provide them this information that they can put out in their training that they do for their election authorities.
If folks have questions about, you know, well, when do I file my nominating papers, and what do I even need to do to file my nominating papers? I mean, who should they talk to about that?
That's a great question, and we get that question a lot, but we always suggest that they reach out to their local election authority. It's generally their township clerk, their multi-township clerk if they've organized, or the county clerk is ultimately the overseer of elections. We always suggest they go there to find out what those qualifications as far as deadlines are, because it could be different from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And I don't want to tell you that it's the end of November or early December and then you've got a caucus that we didn't know about.
Right.
So it's always best to go to those election authorities in your particular jurisdictions to get your specific requirements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you had mentioned before, about multi townships, and there are a lot of multi townships that are out there across the state and in different counties. So, if there is a township or even a multi township that has a vacancy in it, how does somebody go about getting appointed or contracting to be able to serve if there's an opening like that?
Yeah, great question.
And maybe it's not an election year.
Right. There are a number of townships that are vacant across the state, or multi-townships for that matter. We have a good portion of them that have somebody run every year, but then there are some where they just don't have a qualified person to run. To be appointed to office, you do have to live in that jurisdiction. So if I live here in Springfield Township, now we do have somebody who does run and gets elected to this township, but if we didn't, I live here, and if I were interested in it, it would be a conflict for me at the Department of Revenue. But if it were somebody else, they could go to that township, and if they're qualified, they could express interest and work with that township. If I don't live in a township that I'm interested in, I could qualify to be contracted. Whether you're elected or appointed or contracted, you still have to be qualified. You still have to get a certificate of educational qualification from the department. It doesn't matter what method you take office.
Yeah.
If you don't live in that jurisdiction, you could contract to do the work. We would suggest you reach out to those township boards or multi-township boards and say, hey, I'm qualified. I might be an elected assessor in jurisdiction A, but I see that you're my neighboring township and you have nobody. I'd love to do that work for you, and I'm qualified. Here's a copy of my certificate that I got from the department. What can we do? And you can work that out with that township board, and they may be interested in contracting you to get that work done.
So elected or appointed, you have to live within that jurisdiction.
Correct.
If you're contracted, you don't have to necessarily live in the jurisdiction.
Correct.
But for all of those, no matter what, whether you're elected, you're appointed, or you're contracted, you still have to have that certificate of qualification.
Absolutely. It's required no matter which methodology you're taking office.
Yeah. So Adrianne, if and again, just to remind folks, if you have questions, please feel free to comment on this live stream on our Facebook page. But if folks have questions, they think of something after the fact, maybe an hour from now or tomorrow or whatever the case may be, where can they go to find more information out about this?
We have a ton of information on our website. It's kind of been a goal of mine to keep putting more information out there because we feel that benefits everybody.
Yeah.
The department's website is tax.illinois.gov, and that's the entire word Illinois in there. And you could do a Google search for Illinois Department of Revenue, and that would get you there as well. When you're on the department's homepage, there are drop-down menus across the top. One of them says local governments, and we know that property taxes is a local government function. So you click the local governments drop-down, and then we have a link under there that says property tax. That takes you to a landing page for all of our different property tax information. If you want to know how to assess farmland or coal or wind, solar, all of those things, we have information about that. We also have our very own page that you can jump from called Education. We put together an education program guide every year. It incorporates IPAI information and department information. So we put some information about how to qualify for a CIAO, what your education cycles are, and things like that in that guide. We update it anytime there's a law change, a rule change, a policy change. It's available for everybody. And then we just have like the township listings and what qualifications are for each on that page as well, along with your link to get your certificate of educational qualification. So lots of information on our website, and we're always looking for ideas. So if you go to our website and there's something you're looking for and you can't find it, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can send us an email at the department. I'll give you those email addresses in a minute. And if it's something that we can do feasibly, we are more than happy to continue to put information on our website to help assessors or potential assessor candidates find out what they need to do and learn more about the different options that are available to them. You can also always email us. We have a joint box that a couple of us work out of, especially right now while we're working in and out of the office. Email is best because we can get to you right away.
Yeah.
That email address is rev, R-E-V, .proptaxed, so property tax education, we've shortened it up, PROPTAXED @illinois.gov. And it's the whole word Illinois in there. Many of the assessors already have that email address and reach out to us on that. But if you don't, feel free to send us a message. We'll try to answer any questions that you have.
That's great. You know, the IPA, and we've been around for over 50 years, and really almost from day one. We've had someone from the Department of Revenue sitting on our board of directors. Adrianne is currently a member of our board in her position at the department, and we really have had a decades-long close partnership with the Department of Revenue, and that continues today. That's part of the reason we wanted to bring you on and have you share with us, you know, all the some of this important information for our students and for the assessors that are out there.
Well, thank you. Yes, and I appreciate the partnership as well. We work very well together in bouncing class ideas and you know, just different ideas to try to make things better for our assessors, because we serve the same population of people, and I think It's really important that we're working together to provide them the best options that we possibly can.
Yeah, you bet. Well, Adrianne, anything else you want to share or talk about this morning?
No, I miss everybody. We of course, with like everybody else, we've not been able to go out to some of the assessor meetings and give some of the classes that we want due to stay-at-home orders. We're still, like I said, trying to do whatever we can to help assessors out, but nothing beats face-to-face interaction with the people that you work with every day. So I do miss all of you. I miss talking to a lot of you, and hopefully soon we'll be back in the swing of things and able to do whatever we can to work together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And stay safe and well, everybody.
Yeah. Well, until we see you in person, take care and yeah, stay safe and healthy.
Yep. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, Adrianne.
Thank you.
Well, next up, our next guest is Chad Geiser, and Chad is with Integrity Technology Solutions. He is the Director of Strategic Partnerships for Integrity Technology Solutions. Integrity is an IT cybersecurity company that is headquartered in Bloomington, Illinois, in the center of the state. That's where the IPI is headquartered as well. And Integrity has been around for 27 years. And hey, there's Chad.
Hey, how's it going?
Great. Hey, good morning. You know, I've known Chad for a long time, and he's a super guy. And Chad, we are just so thrilled to have you join us here today.
Yeah, well, Josh, thanks for having me, and thanks for the opportunity to wear a collared shirt. You know, shelter in place dress code doesn't have many rules, so this is really exciting for me today.
I'm wearing a button shirt and a jacket here. You know, I do this for these broadcasts that we're having weekly, but if it wasn't for this, you know, I'd probably be, you know, sporting a t-shirt or a sweatshirt or something like
that. Well, you're a classy guy, so again, thanks for having me.
You bet. Yeah, I can't remember who it was. I saw somewhere online that they were encouraging folks to have dress up Fridays. So really, like on Fridays, you know, to get all gussied up as if you were, you know, actually like, you know, going into the office or whatever, you know, tie it up, put on a dress or whatever it is.
Yeah, my brother actually had that years ago, and they called it Formal Fridays, and that was how they dressed at the office. So everybody else was having a heat day, and they were like shirt and tie on Friday, you know?
That's awesome. Well, Chad, you know, I just introduced you to the folks. I told them about your role with Integrity. So Integrity is the IPAI's IT provider. We contract with them to provide all of our IT services. We've been doing that for quite a while. Of course, they're a highly regarded business, not just in Bloomington Normal, but really all throughout Illinois. You have customers all over the place. And part of the reason we wanted to talk with Chad from Integrity was we have received questions from folks about what has changed in the IT world since all this has started. What do I need to know, especially when it comes to cybersecurity, because so many folks are working at home right now. So that's why we wanted to bring Chad in and have him share a little bit about that.
Sure.
So Chad,
Yeah.
sort of on that topic, what has changed since this COVID-19 pandemic has sort of been going on in the world of IT? What's been going on with all of that?
Yeah, so probably the most obvious thing is the mass exodus to, in some cases, 100% remote workforce.
Yeah.
So, businesses that have scenarios where, maybe they've got some staff that is used to working remotely from time to time, but some staff that report to a brick and mortar location every day from 8 to 5. And so this is a new experience for them.
Yeah.
So there's the piece of like showing employees how to make that work. And then there's the considerations around, how are people now accessing our systems and our data related to our business? And along with that come, some additional security considerations and maybe some additional risk, things that may be a little bit different than where we were at before this all started. But on the positive note, folks are really leaning on IT more than ever.
Yeah.
And that can be a good thing. And when we start to think through the opportunities on the flip side of all this, when we return back to closer to normal, whatever that looks like on the tail end of this, there's a lot of things that could be good. So businesses are realizing what they're capable of doing because they're leveraging technology more. So for instance, for us, we've got IT help desk staff that is, they're those folks that report to our office 7:30 to 5, Monday through Friday. And this is the first time that we've taken them completely remote. So are we able to pull off our support services in a remote fashion to where our clients aren't seeing a difference from whether or not they're all working from their homes or if they're working from our office? So when we think through opportunities in our business, for instance, what does that mean for hiring moving forward? Like you mentioned, we service communities across the state of Illinois.
Yeah.
And when we go to staff up our help desk in our next round of hiring, do we really need to focus on candidates that are just in a 30-minute commute radius to our brick and mortar location? Or would it be beneficial to bring in a help desk staff member from another community that we service so that we could send them on site? So, would they have the ability to work remotely? So I think every business has their own unique opportunities that could come out of this. So really, as we're hopefully getting to the end of the whole shelter in place order and getting back to normal, we can start to consider what are some of the things that we can utilize moving forward. The other piece is just taking advantage of technology that's already been in place, but hasn't been adopted to this point. So a great example of it is everybody's comfort level with communicating like you and I are communicating today, just whether we're using Teams or Zoom or some of these tools that businesses have invested in but haven't fully utilized for communication and collaboration, and now they're in a situation where they have to. So I think
as we stated last week when Amanda was on, if folks did not know this, you can use Zoom for things besides hosting virtual happy hours with your friends.
Yeah, right.
It also has a significant business purpose.
That's right. Well, and sometimes we talk about, in today's world, everybody's so connected, and it'd be nice, it's like go into the wilderness and go off the grid or whatever. But right. I think that there's some ways that we do feel more connected now, but really in a positive way. Yeah. And just even in the social situation, it's like, think about the people that you've been able to connect with that, maybe you haven't connected with in a really long time. So there's a lot of positive things that are coming out of all.
So as people are using some of these new tools or tools that have been around, but maybe they just weren't familiar with in the past, and folks are working from home, cybersecurity obviously is a concern for folks. So, I mean, what kind of threats are out there that everyone needs to be mindful of as they're sheltering in place and doing more remote type of work?
Yeah, so that's probably the most common question that we're fielding now. So it's on everybody's mind. And believe it or not, it's a fairly non-technical answer to that. So anytime that there's some sort of opportunity for a bad actor to take advantage of what's going on in the world, they'll find a way to do it. So like as far as the risks that are different today, it would be things like how can a bad actor go in and take advantage of the COVID-19 scenario, or the fact that people are using Zoom for work meetings and communication now and things like that. So you get these threats that come out that are related, like Zoom bombing. Everybody's heard about that, So like one of the things that Integrity did on our website was we put out a blog that said, hey, here are the security measures to put in place so nobody can jump in on Josh Barnett's late morning show.
Yeah.
And take us off course. So, there's things
we're good enough at taking ourselves off course. We don't need help from anyone else.
Yeah, that's right. And then, so people, or human error is typically the biggest risk to most organizations. And what I mean by that is most threats come in through email, and it's about links and attachments and things like that. So when COVID-19's going on, maybe a bad actor would come up with an email scam that they send out that says, hey, there's 274 new cases of COVID-19 in McLean County. Click on this link to find out more. I wasn't expecting that link in the first place, but I'm interested in that topic, so I'm clicking on it.
Right.
Which could put me at risk if somebody was trying to gain access to my information.
And it's scary because some of these emails that are coming through, I mean, they look legitimate. I mean, they may have a reputable company's logo or masthead, included in the email. There are some elaborate schemes out there. That are coming at people.
Yeah, and there's so it's always like pay attention to who's taking advantage of what's going on in the world. So like during tax season, we're always telling our internal staff and then communicating to our clients. It's like, hey, we don't send out electronic W-2s. So if you get during tax season, if you get an attachment that's an electronic W-2, don't click on it. The Olympics were postponed, until next year. But it's common to take advantage of something big that's going on, and like, hey, here's an email from USA Today about something that's going on at the Olympics, and then everybody clicks on it. So those are the things that are specifically associated with what it is that we're going through now. But a lot of the risks have not changed, like what you mentioned with, it's like everybody understands that email can be potentially a threat. So we talk the things that are still a threat now that we just need to pay attention to, that are just the same as they were before this all started, are things like ransomware. So if I click on an attachment or an email, or an attachment in an email or a link in an email, that is an actual phishing email like that can potentially provide access to a bad actor to deploy ransomware. That's essentially a threat where a bad actor is able to encrypt my data or my system so I don't have access to them anymore, and then they require a ransom to get the keys back to the kingdom, and that's how they make their money. That's a common threat, and it's always there, regardless of if we're in a pandemic or not. And then the other one that we see commonly is credential theft. So that's bad actors getting a hold of your username and login and password. That's credential theft. And there's lots of different things that can happen if somebody has access to your credentials. And typically, those are threats that can come through email too, entering your credentials in an email, and then somebody has access to your systems. So those are really the two main ones that we see for small and medium-sized businesses, but they're not specific necessarily to the COVID-19 situation unless the actual email message is related to that topic.
Yeah. And you guys serve you serve a wide range of organizations. You serve, like, help me out here, small businesses and nonprofits and some medium-sized businesses as well.
Yep, mostly small and medium-sized local businesses. We've got anywhere from 3 employees to 4,000 employees. So there's a big range there, but most of our clients are maybe 20 to 150 employees.
Yeah.
And we do service regulated clients. So financial institutions like community banks and credit unions, and then healthcare with, HIPAA compliance and things like that.
And these threats that people see, it's not specific to just one business or one type of organization. You see this across the board, right, with everybody.
Yeah, we sure do. And, really with that ransomware idea, it's like if I can get into somebody's network and keep them from accessing their information, it used to be a lot of businesses thought that, hey, I don't have a bunch of information that would be worth anything to anyone else, so I'm not too worried about it.
Right.
But the issue is that with the threats like ransomware out there, it's like, well, your information and your systems are important to you. So, if you don't have a reliable way to get your data back other than paying a ransom, then there's the money in it for the bad actor.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there are some things that you can do to protect yourself.
Yeah. What can you do?
Yeah. So for credential theft, we talked about that a little bit, like somebody getting a hold of your username and password to log into your systems. And there's different ways that a bad actor can do that. So, and this is actually something that's important to apply both to business and to personal use. This can be helpful. But one of the best ways to do that, especially with remote workforce and remote access, is by using multi-factor authentication. Sometimes you'll hear that referred to as two-factor authentication. And essentially what that is when you're logging into a system, it's something that you have and something that you know. So like if you think about going to the ATM and you have a physical debit card and then you know your PIN, that's two-factor authentication. Many of you might have that already in play on your bank accounts. So if you log into your bank account, you enter in your credentials, and then your bank sends you a text with a code that you type in. That's multi-factor authentication. And the good news is for a lot of things, it's free. So a lot of people use Microsoft 365 for email and other systems, or they may use Gmail. All these systems have multi-factor authentication, and it's just a matter of turning it on. As it relates to your personal life, you absolutely should be using multi-factor authentication on your bank accounts. And then social media sites like Facebook, it's just a matter of turning multi-factor authentication on and then protecting your information in that way. So if your credentials are compromised, you're going to know it, because if someone's logging in from somewhere else and acting as you with your credentials, and a message pops on your phone saying, hey, is it you that's logging in, and you're not, you hit no, they don't have access to your information. It might be a good time to change your password at that point.
And whatever you do, right, you don't use the same password for every login you have. It's tempting because it makes it easy, right? But that's probably not a good idea.
Yeah. So when you hear, like a few years ago, LinkedIn was breached. Do you remember that?
Yeah. That was a big story.
Yeah. So it's a big story, and everybody's like, well, what does this mean? It's like, well, so what that means is one of the things that can come out of something like that is that a bad actor may have access to your credentials. That's credential theft. So think about if you use the same login and password for LinkedIn as you did for your bank account. and a
Sure.
bad actor was able to put two and two together and just try different banking sites with your credentials, then they might have access to your personal finance. So there's an easy way to combat that, and that's when those things happen, change your password, or like what you said, there is a increased amount of risk when you're using the same password on multiple sites. There's resources that you can use that are free, like
Yeah, what,
LastPass.
I was just going to ask you, yeah, what resources are out there for people to help them keep track of all these different passwords and usernames?
Yeah, so the reason why people use the same login credentials on multiple sites is because it's hard to keep track of them all the time, right? And it's a big pain in the butt every time you're trying to log into something. It's like I can't remember which password I was using on the site. So
Right.
um, applications like LastPass and KeyPass and just password managers out there that can securely store your passwords can help with that, so that you can have unique passwords on multiple sites and not have the pressure of having to remember what those are. And you can attach them directly to your internet browser, and it's real easy, like a couple click throughs that'll guide you through on any of these free ones. And so that application will actually pop up the first time you log in to the sites that you normally log in, and it'll ask you if you want to save your password. And then you can go ahead and do that. And then it'll just automatically populate it for you in a secure way the next time you go to that site.
Yeah, that's handy.
Yep. A couple things, other things that you want to make sure of. So if you have an IT provider or an IT support person in your business, they're managing things, most likely managing things related to antivirus and security updates for your computer and things like that. If you don't have access to an IT staff, a lot of people are using Microsoft, for instance. So when you're on Windows 10 for your operating system, there's ways to turn on Windows Defender and automatic security updates. So just like you might be used to on your phone, every once in a while your phone pops up and says, "Hey, there's an update."
Hey, there's an update here. Yeah.
A lot of times there's some security components to that. So there might be a known threat that's out there that they've put a patch in for. So when you run those updates, it protects you against those types of security threats. Same with your computer. So like when you turn on, if you have automatic updates turned on for Windows 10, that means that you're going to be receiving those security updates for Windows applications specifically that can add another layer of protection there. If, like I said, if you have an IT support person or an IT support provider, a lot of times that stuff is part of the management plan that they have in place. But if you're on your own, it's an easy Google search to figure out how to turn Windows Defender on and automatic updates.
Yeah. Is there anything else out there that folks can do to help protect themselves?
One of the things, depending on what your scenario is with IT, one of the ways that we respond to incidents like ransomware, for instance, is by having a solid backup in place. So if we have a valid backup that hasn't been accessed, with whatever breach occurred or incident that happened, we can simply restore from backup and not have to pay a ransom in those situations when it does happen. So I guess the message there is making sure that you have a valid backup of your systems and your data. So, to recap that, I mean, if we're thinking about the most common threats with ransomware,
Right.
we've got a solid backup in place. And from a security awareness perspective, we know, hey, I'm not expecting this attachment. Maybe I should pay attention before I click it, or this isn't a link that, looks quite right. And we're doing those types of things right there. We're bringing the likelihood of a security breach way down and mitigating some risk there. So backup and the security awareness part on paying attention to email, turning on multi-factor authentication where it's free. Make sure that you've got antivirus in place and you're getting your security updates. And really those multiple layers of security greatly reduce the risk that you'd suffer a security breach. And I'll tell you, during everything else that's going on right now, it's the last thing that anybody wants to deal with in their business is a cybersecurity breach on top of everything else. And just know that there's nothing, unfortunately, there's nothing that's 100% going to protect you. And that's why you see all these large organizations in the news that get breaches. And I mean, they're investing millions and millions of dollars into cybersecurity and, you know, have crazy access to resources with internal IT staff and all these things. You know, so there's nothing that's 100%, but it's like these things that we're talking about today that can reduce the risk or the likelihood that you'd suffer a cybersecurity breach goes a long way. Because, you know, think about it, if you're a bad actor and there's a target out there that's a lot easier to infiltrate than one that's got multiple layers of protection in place, where are you going to spend your time?
You're going to go for that easier target, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Chad, hey, thanks so much for joining us today. If people want to know more about Integrity, how can they find you guys?
Yeah, our website address is www.integrityts.com. The TS is for Technology Solutions. Our phone number's there. There's ways to contact us other ways. One thing to point out is that we do put out a lot of security updates on our blog, so you can follow us there. So you get updates like, hey, when this whole Zoom bombing thing happened, here are the like several security settings you should turn on for Zoom. You get information like that. So that's a good way to follow us too.
Great resource. You guys are, you're so helpful to us and a lot of other organizations. And, you know, again, appreciate you taking the time to come on today and to chat with us about all this.
Yeah, well, I appreciate everyone that's tuned in today. And, you know, Josh, thanks for having me. We really appreciate the partnership that we have with you and your staff. So thank you.
You bet, man. Hey, good chatting with you. And hopefully, when this is over, we'll see each other in person again soon.
Oh, yeah. Great. Talk to you soon, Josh.
Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye. Well, that concludes everything for today. Just want to do a quick reminder for you. Next Thursday, May 7th, Chesney Leafblad, the Chief Deputy Assessor of Warren Township in Lake County, is going to be with us talking about tips and tricks for communicating with constituents during this stay-at-home time. She's going to be sharing some great resources that she has to help you do your job more effectively. The schedule for the rest of May, or the rest of our May guests, is going to be released sometime next week, so keep an eye out for that. We're going to have a great slate ahead for you. Remember, all of these are archived both on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel, and on our website, ipAIeducation.org. During the stay-at-home order, IPAI staff continues to work from home, but we have access to our email. Feel free to contact us through the contact us page on the website. Also, keep up with all of the COVID-19 updates from the IPAI, what we're doing as far as rescheduling courses and other announcements we're making that are related to COVID-19 on our website. If you go to ipAIeducation.org, go to the resources tab, and underneath of that is a menu option for coronavirus and COVID updates. So be sure to check that out if you have a chance. So with that said, thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you all taking the time to be here, and hope you're all staying safe and healthy with your families. But until we see each other again, take care, and thanks again for coming by.